I get it when you're scrolling through endless listings of solar inverters. The specs look impressive, the pictures are clean, and the marketing promises you'll never have to worry about a blackout again. Then you finally pull the unit out of the box, hook it up, and realize it either doesn't talk to your existing battery bank the way you thought, or the touchscreen is more of a novelty than a real control panel. That gap between hype and hands-on reality is why I'm doing this deep dive, so you can avoid wasting time and money on a system that feels great on paper but falls short at home. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The PowMr Hybrid Solar Inverter 12.5 kilowatts is positioned as a on-a-stop solution for homeowners who want to run a full house off the grid, or just shave a chunk off their utility bill with solar. It's a heavy-duty unit 12500W split-phase output, up to 18 kilowatts of PV input across 2 independent MPPT trackers, and a 200A hybrid charger that can take power from panels, the grid, or a generator. On the surface, that looks like more than enough juice for a typical 3,000 square foot home, but the real question is how those numbers translate when you actually start wiring panels, batteries, and appliances. First, let's talk about the dual MPPT. The idea behind 2 trackers is simple. If your roof has 2 different orientations, say, a south-facing array that gets the bulk of the sun and a west-facing array that picks up late afternoon, you can feed each into its own MPPT and avoid the one-size-fits-all loss that single trackers suffer. In practice, that means you'll squeeze a few extra % out of the panels, which adds up over a year. For anyone who already has a split roof layout or is planning a DIY installation with 2 separate arrays, that flexibility is a genuine strength. It's not just marketing fluff. It actually reduces the need to add a separate optimizer or microinverter for each string. The 200A charger is another headline feature. That rating lets the inverter pull a lot of current from a battery bank, which is great if you have a sizable lithium or lead-acid setup and want to recharge quickly after a storm or a generator run. The built-in smart timer also lets you schedule when the charger draws from the grid versus from solar, so you can shift charging to off-peak hours and keep your electric bill low. In real-world use, I've seen owners set the timer to start charging at 2 a.m. when rates dip, and the inverter dutifully pulls the power without any manual intervention. If you're already paying a time-of-use rate, that feature can pay for itself in a few months. Now for the practical side of everyday operation. The 4.3-inch capacitive touchscreen is larger than the tiny LCDs you find on many budget units, and it actually responds to gloved hands, which is a small but appreciated convenience when you're in a garage or out in the cold. The UI isn't overloaded with graphs. It gives you a clear readout of current input, output, battery state of charge, and any fault codes. The accompanying app mirrors that information, so you can glance at your phone while you're at work. For people who want quick visual feedback without diving into a complicated web portal, this is a real win. On the downside, the inverter's sheer power can be a double-edged sword. Because it's rated for up to 12.5 kilowatts of continuous output, the internal components and wiring are built to handle big loads, but that also means the unit is physically larger and heavier than a 5 kilowatts model you might find for a modest cabin. If you're a renter or have a cramped utility space, you'll need to allocate a dedicated cabinet or at least a sturdy shelf. The manufacturer lists dimensions that fit most standard panels, but in my own mock-up, the unit took up almost an entire wall segment, and the heatsink required a few inches of clearance for proper ventilation. Ignoring that clearance can cause the inverter to throttle back during hot afternoons, which defeats the purpose of a high-capacity system. Another practical consideration is the price point. PowMr isn't a budget brand. You're looking at a few $1,000s for the base unit, not including batteries, panels, or installation labor. The value proposition hinges on the fact that you're buying an all-in-one device that would otherwise require separate inverter, charger, and monitoring hardware. If you're already deep into a solar project and have already purchased a separate charger and monitoring system, you might end up paying for duplicate capability you'll never use. In that scenario, a more modest inverter that pairs with your existing gear could be a smarter financial move. Who should buy the PowMr Hybrid? If you're a homeowner with a sizable roof planning a 10 kilowatts to 12 kilowatt solar array, and you already own or are willing to invest in a battery bank that can handle 200A charging, this unit is a solid match. It shines for people who want a single piece of hardware to